Well, all right, everyone. Thanks very much for registering for the VJ100 coming up on the 28th and the 29th. Today I just wanted to briefly go through a few items of importance with regards to the race. Most of them are around safety, security, and just knowing how to get your way around the race course. So that's the three things we're going to focus on. So you'll probably notice me today, I've got a few items on, packs or a vest, some gloves. They're not mandatory gear, but they're recommended. You might have seen me climbing up one of the steeper trails at the beginning of this presentation. That's what this is used for, but also some sections will have some ropes to actually assist you with either descending or ascending depending on the circumstances. So we have a number of rope sections. They're not necessary to use the ropes, and the ropes are really there just for a bit more confidence, or if you're feeling a bit unsteady on your feet. But as I said, highly recommended if you have any pair of gloves. These are just gardening gloves, just very flexible gardening gloves, but if you have other more expensive tight gloves, it's up to you to decide whether you use them or not. So we don't want people with rope burns or anything like that because they grabbed a rope sliding down or something like that. So really, but it's really up to you guys. If you don't think you're going to use the ropes, or you're careful enough not to slide down them, then no need for gloves. So a few pieces of mandatory gear, and I'm just going to refer to my list here to make sure we touch on each of the topics because they are all very important. So the first thing is to have some kind of vest. So you'll see I'm wearing a pack here. This pack's a little bit big probably for what you need for a 10K loop. So you've got to plan for, at least probably an hour to an hour and a quarter of hydration. And if you have snacks, you don't have to have snacks. There is an aid station at the halfway point. So unless you really need, like you're a diabetic or something and you need sugar, then maybe you bring some snacks with you, but other people, it's really your choice whether you carry any additional food. So the aid station is well stocked at the halfway point. And we also, for those who are doing multiple loops, we have an aid station at the loop point back after every loop. So as I said, hydration vest, very important. The second thing is how much fluid you actually bring with you. This is a 500 ml flask. For the 10K runners, this is the minimum that you are advised to carry. Now you can carry more if you like. The choice is really up to you. It mostly depends on two variables: how long you're going to be out on the route, and number two, how hot the weather is. So for the 10K, minimum 500. For the 20K, 50K, 100K, minimum is 1 liter. Okay, so that's two of these. Very important. Smartphone. So I have a smartphone in my pocket here. The smartphone is for a number of reasons. Number one, for emergency purposes, if you need to call anyone for any reason, or we as the race organizers may need to contact you for some reason, right? So it's a dual purpose there. The second thing is we're using an app called Trail Me. Now, an email has gone out just yesterday in relation to loading the app on your phone, how you set it up, and some videos and links in there. So please have your Trail Me app downloaded and set up before you arrive at the race venue. We will have people there to assist you. The app is actually for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a tracking app. So we have lots of beacons located out on the route. These beacons connect to your Bluetooth, via Bluetooth to your phone, and send a signal to say that you're at that specific location, right? So it's very important that you follow the instructions to having your, number one, your Bluetooth on, number two, location services, and number three, data services, right? So you'll need to ensure you have load on your phone that's good enough for the length of your event. It'll be using data. It doesn't use that much data. It sends very minimal data, but you will still need to have it activated. And as I said, Bluetooth and location services as well. We'll have people on site to help you check it and verify it and make sure that's okay before you go, but it's very important that we have that because we need to know where you are at all times on the route. The other thing as well is that it's also for us to monitor people who are maybe not following the exact route, so we know whether you've completed the course as it's been intended. Okay, so that's the smartphone aspect, so very important. Now for the longer distances, so the 10K and the 20K, depending on your phone of course, as long as your battery is going to last for the duration of your specific category, you don't need to carry a spare battery. But more than likely, if you've got data services on and Bluetooth running, the 50 and the 100K almost certainly will need some kind of external battery. There is a drop bag for the 50Ks and the 100K, so you don't need to carry that battery with you all the time, but you can pick it up at certain points. But just be very aware that there are some, extreme penalties for not having your phone switched on, even if your battery ran out. So you need to be very clear. If you're worried about your battery running out, take a battery with you. Okay, so it's really up to you as the runner to determine whether you should bring a battery or when you should take it from your drop bag. The third thing is an emergency blanket. Now you might think, okay, we're in Camp John Hay in the middle of Baguio. I don't need an emergency blanket. January is cold in Baguio. It can get down to single-digit figures overnight or in the early morning. If you injure yourself and it takes some time for somebody to get to you, or it starts raining, we don't expect rain, but it's always possible, and you get wet and you can't move, you can very quickly go hypothermic. So an emergency blanket is a requirement for all distances. An emergency whistle as well is also a requirement. A lot of packs have them built in. I don't think I have one here on my pack, but a lot of the packs have them built in on the little clips that you see on the front here. Or you can carry a separate whistle as well, but it's extremely important to have that in case you fall over, you go the wrong way, and or you fall down a slope or something like that and no one can see you, then at least you can signal for somebody to come and find you. A wind or rain jacket. Now, the choice is really up to you guys. A windbreaker is definitely required, particularly in the nighttime. It gets very cold, and in certain sections, like where I'm standing now, particularly at night, you get quite a strong breeze coming across here, so it can be quite cold. I'd also suggest probably a rain jacket, certainly for the 50 and the 100K runners, versus a windbreaker. Windbreaker may be suitable for the 10 and 20K, but once again, if it rains, that's not going to help you keeping warm. So it's up to you guys to determine what's most appropriate for your event and also what potentially the weather conditions could be. One thing to keep in mind is that weather changes rapidly here. So it could be totally fine, and then at one point in time, and then an hour or two later, it could be pouring with rain. January is usually a fine time of the year, but once again, we're not 100% sure with the weather. The next item is a basic first aid kit. Okay, so we've listed on our website and also in our Facebook and event pages the actual minimum requirements for that kit. Now, it's very important that everyone has those minimum requirements. We'll be checking all the mandatory gear at the start. If you don't want to go to the hassle of getting those requirements for the first aid kit, we do have a small kit that we've put together that you can purchase for 300 pesos. It's really up to you. That might make your life a little bit easier. 300 pesos is not a lot to pay for a little bit of first aid gear. So choice is really up to you, but we will be checking all of this, and you need to have all the items as mentioned in that first aid kit. Trail running specific shoes. Now, we are going to check this too, so don't bring your road shoes or any other kinds of shoes. Make sure they are designed to run on trails. You might have seen at the beginning of this video me climbing quite a steep ascent. With the wrong kind of shoes, you could be falling off that. So we don't want that to happen. There's a lot of slippery sections where it's really, for safety purposes, you need to have the right kinds of shoes. We don't want you sliding down a slope, falling over and injuring yourself. So we will be checking that. So please don't turn up with the wrong shoes, because we won't be able to allow you to start. Red and white blinkers. This is for the 50 and the 100K who will be at night. The only reason for this is so that we can potentially see you in case you fall over, you injure yourself, but other runners can also potentially see you in the dark as well, right? So the idea here is that even if your headlight, you smash your headlight, fall over, but usually the blinkers are fairly hardy, we may be able to still find you in the dark, right? So this is only for the nighttime sections, of course. It could be a red or a white blinker, okay? Spare batteries and or a power bank. So we spoke about a power bank to charge your phone, but also you'll need spare batteries for any kind of headlight that you may have that's not going to last for the full night. This is once again for the 50 and the 100K runners, right? Now we need a headlight, okay, so at least a headlight or some kind of belt light or something like that to light the way at night. You know, it's up to you guys. You know how well you run at night or not, but remember it's pitch black out here, so very little light. But I'd suggest you choose a brighter light if you have the option. As I said, some of these trail sections are very technical, so you need more light. But the choice is up to you. So you need a primary headlight and you need some backup form of light, right? So it could be a handheld torch. Your phone will not be sufficient to be a backup light. So please have a secondary light, whether it be a torch or a second light, a headlight or something like that, just in case your primary headlight fails. You know, you run out of batteries for that, at least you have a backup to get back to an aid station or the loop point. Okay, so for those of you who are doing specifically the 50 and the 100K categories, I would highly recommend, if you've trained with these, or is a set of hiking poles, right? So this is a very challenging course. There are lots of ascents and descents. Obviously you want the ones that can fold up into something small in case you want to put it in your pack or hold it when you're not using it. And obviously they need to be the right size for you, okay? So this is highly recommended, although it's not mandatory gear for certainly for the 50 and the 100K, or even the 10 and the 20K if you like, but most people can probably handle the 10 and the 20K without hiking poles, but there are great assistance if you're doing the longer distances. And also if you're a bit tired, it also helps with stability and safety as well. So highly recommended. Okay, one last point about the mandatory gear. We will be doing checks before the event. There will be checks during the event at random points, so we're not announcing where those will be. And there will also be checks at the end of the race. So when you finish and you come across the finish line, before you collect any medal or other kinds of finisher type tokens, we will be checking to make sure you're carrying the gear that you left with. Okay, so very important that you don't drop it off at some point or hand it off to somebody, because at the end of the day you're not going to, even if you finish, even if you're the winner, you won't be able to collect your prizes or finisher tokens. So please be very careful with that. Thank you. Okay, so just a brief rundown of the schedule for the different race categories. So for the 100K, race kit claiming for the 100K starts at 5 a.m. on Saturday, 28th of January, okay? Our race briefing, so we'll do a slightly abbreviated race briefing just to go over any last minute specifics of the event, occurs at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, 28th of January. Start time, very important for the 100K, is 7 a.m. on Saturday, 28th of January. So please make sure you come early enough to pick up your gear and sign in and get your timing chips and your trail mirrors working on your phone and all those items. And also to have your mandatory gear checked. So after the start at 7 a.m. for the 100K, there is a cutoff time at the 50K mark. Now this occurs at 1 a.m. on Sunday, 29th of January. Okay, so very important that you get, if you're part of the 100K, that you get to the 50K mark by 1 a.m. And you need to be leaving the aid station before 1 a.m. on that particular time. Okay. And of course, the final cutoff time for the 100K is 3 p.m. on Sunday, 29th of January. Okay, so just a brief update on the schedule of events for the 50K category. So the 50K category race kit claiming for 50K starts at 9 p.m. on Saturday, 28th of January. So that's 2 hours before the start of the race, so please get there early enough to complete all of your mandatory gear checks, ensuring your TrailMe app is on your phone and working correctly, and everything else that needs to be done. Your timing chip is set up and ready for you to go. We'll do a basic race briefing and last minute information at 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, 28th of January, with the race to start half an hour later at 11 p.m. on Saturday, 28th of January, so that's night time. Now, the 50 kilometer also has a cutoff at the 30 kilometer mark, so that's after 3 loops. That cutoff time is 8:30 a.m. Now that you need to have left the 3rd loop or left after the aid station by 8:30 a.m. So it's not your arrival time, it's your departure time. Okay, so even if you arrived at 8:29 a.m., you have a minute at the aid station to leave, otherwise you'll be cut off. So please be aware of that. So that's a cutoff time at the 30 kilometer point. Now the final cutoff time for the 50K is 3 p.m. on Sunday 29th of January. Okay, so for the 20 kilometer category, we have a race kit claiming starting at 4 a.m. on Sunday 29th of January. That's 2 hours before the start time of the race. Please make sure you get there as early as possible, as you will need to do your mandatory gear checks. You'll need to make sure your TrailMe app is set up on your phone and working correctly, and to get your timing chip and all the other pre-race requirements to be completed before the race briefing. Now the race briefing occurs at 5:30 a.m. on Sunday 29th of January. This will just be last minute information about the event or any changes that might have occurred. And the race itself for the 20K category will start at 6 a.m. on Sunday 29th of January. Now there is a cutoff time at the finish, but there's no intermediary cutoff time for the 20K. So the cutoff time the final cutoff time for the 20K is 11:24 a.m. On Sunday 29th of January. Now there are slightly different cutoff times for males and females, so please look at our website or our Facebook pages to see what those times are. So that 11:24 a.m. is for women. Now for men it's actually a little bit less than that, so please check on that. Okay, so the 10 kilometer category, we have race kit claiming occurring at 10 a.m. on Sunday 29th of January. That's 2 hours before the race start. Please make sure you get there early to do your mandatory equipment checks, and also to make sure TrailMe is working on your phone, and to have your timing chip and any other pre-race requirements done before the actual start time. The race briefing will be at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday 29th of January with a start time of 12 p.m. So that's midday for the 10 kilometer category. Now the cutoff time for the women is 2:49 p.m. Now the men's cutoff time is actually quite significantly less than that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. One thing to keep in mind for the different categories is that for the 10 kilometer, the 20 kilometer and the 50 kilometer categories, we have different cutoff times for men and women. For the 100 kilometer, the 100 kilometer category has the same cutoff time for men and women. So we'll start with the 100 kilometers. The 100 kilometer has a final cutoff time of 32 hours. Okay, so you've got 32 hours from the start for both men and women to finish and to receive your normal finishers gear. Now there are various elite gold, silver and bronze cutoff times, and that just means you will get, if you finish within those times, you will get slightly different medals in terms of the colors, okay? Now the 50 kilometer category has a cutoff time of 15 hours, 15 minutes for the men and 16 hours for women, okay? So that's the final cutoff time. Once again, there are intermediary cutoff times for elite gold, silver and bronze. Now for the 20 kilometer category, it's 4 hours and 42 minutes for men as a cutoff time, final cutoff time, and 5 hours 24 for women as a final cutoff time. Okay, and the various categories of elite gold, silver and bronze are obviously less than that. And finally for the men, the cutoff time for the 10 kilometer men's is 2 hours and 24 minutes. The cutoff time for the women in the 10 kilometer category is 2 hours and 49 minutes, okay? So each of the categories has lower cutoff times if you're in the elite band or the gold band or the silver band or the bronze band. The times that I've been mentioning are in the black band, and that's the final cutoff time for all runners. So please keep that in mind. Check our website and Facebook pages for all of the details on those cutoff times. Okay, so we're just going to talk about some of the signs and markings that you will see along the route. The first one we're going to talk about are these ribbons. These are orange ribbons with a reflective stripe down the middle. Now these you'll see all around the route, probably a lot more than you'll see for other events, but basically the way we've designed the markings is that these should always appear on your left side. So when you're traveling along the trail, you will see them on your left side only. So you must pass to the right of the ribbon. So if you came up to this ribbon and you're in an open area like this, and you go to this side, it's on your right side. So it's actually, you're going the wrong direction, right? So you're either going to the wrong side of the trail or you're going in reverse, one or the other. So please always keep the ribbons on your left side. There is one slight variation to this. There's a few situations, and you'll see this not very often around the route, where there'll be a ribbon on one tree and there'll also be the same ribbon on another tree quite close by. So if you see a set of ribbons here and one next to it, go between the two ribbons, okay? Okay, so along the route you will see distance markers every 200 meters, and they'll look like this. So you'll always know where you are on the route. Every 200 meters there's a marker, so this one is the 5.6 kilometer mark, so we're around the halfway mark or slightly after the halfway mark here. So if after a short section of time you haven't seen any distance markers or any other markings for that matter, you might need to backtrack to find them. But we're hoping that the route is very marked, that you're not going to get lost. So we're pretty confident in that. But you know, it's up to you guys to actually look out for the signs and the markings along the route and make sure you don't get lost. You'll see a lot of markings along the route. Some of the markings that you'll see are directional markers like this sign here. So please keep your eyes open and follow the signs carefully. So here obviously it's a left facing arrow with a turn left written in words as well. So it should be very clear as to where you should be going. So please keep your eye out for these signs along the route. Okay, so as with directional signs that we talked about a little earlier, please follow the arrows and the directions as per the signs. We also have some caution signs along the route, different caution signs depending on the situation. In this situation, slippery terrain, so basically as you go down the slope here, be careful of your feet. It could be loose pine needles or rocks or things like that. We'll also be using barricade tapes of various sorts. Some are danger, some are caution tapes, and then you'll just see some generic Intrepid Spirit tapes as well, just to show you where you should be going in terms of the route.